Out of curiosity, before we officially get started, how many people here wish to build an empire? Excellent, my people. I think every one of you raised your hands yesterday, or Tuesday. That'll be good. It is 1:15. We're here to talk indie publisher. I hope you have questions. If not, feel free to write them down. You're going to get a chance to ask us. But I'm going to ask everybody up here. My name is Michael Anderle. I run LMBPN Publishing. And we have another sister company, LMBPN International, which is for our foreign. So we have the ability to answer questions on both sides. If you ask a bunch of foreign questions, I'm going to ask for a new panelist to come up here. I don't know how she'll feel about it. Oh, she's gone. That figures. But going beyond that, I'm also asking Robin Cutler, and while she does work with LMBPN, Robin's going to explain why she can answer questions on publishing from a wide variety of different things that are going on. To her right is J.N. Chaney, Jeff Chaney, Variant Publications. And he is heavy into sci-fi, and you'll just see his name damn near everywhere. Annoyingly so. And at the end, we have Rhett Bruno with Athon Publishing, but I'm going to ask them to all speak to it. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Are you enjoying the conference? Who's here for the first time? Oh, wow. That's a lot. Yeah. And you're learning a lot. Are your heads about to blow up about now? Yeah. As Michael was saying, I joined LMBPN 2 days into my retirement when Michael gave me a call and asked me to join LMBPN about 2 years ago. So, and I'm the president of LMBPN Worldwide Publishing. Where Michael, and he talked about this some yesterday, he works with collaborators and co-authors. I'm on the side that's basically working with authors that want a traditional sort of publishing contract with LMBPN. So we have recently, in the last year, started a submission process where you can actually submit your manuscript to us for review through our website. So you can go to lmbpn.com and go to the bottom and it says submissions. The other part of my life before I came to LMBPN 2 years ago, I'm actually the creator and the director formerly of Ingram Spark. And then prior to that, I actually helped to create Space and work for Amazon for a few years. So I know a lot about self-publishing, probably one of the experts in the world about self-publishing. So I can answer any questions you have about that and talk about that. I believe that that these two kind of publishing worlds, the indie publishing world and the self-published world, kind of can live happily side by side. Sometimes they overflow into each other. Some authors are self-published and also indie published at the same time. That's possible to do that. But I also think that indie self-published is a great way to start. There's no reason today why everybody can't have a book in the world if that's what they choose to do. And self-published allows you to do that, and also a way that you can learn about the publishing world. So I'll pass this off to Jeff now.
Hi guys, my name is J.N. Chaney, or Jeff. I run Variant Publications. We are not what you would call, I don't even want to say traditional publisher because that's not even, bespoke. We don't really publish people under their name exclusively. We do more of a co-authorship, so it's much more collaborative. Michael has a lot of books like that, but he also publishes people under their own name, like she was talking about. That's a very impressive resume, by the way.
Why do you think he called me?
Yeah. So I would say everybody up here, all four of us, have very different publishing methods. So you're getting a pretty good variety of opinions and business practices. But I'm more of a genre publisher. We specifically focus on space opera and military sci-fi, with very few exceptions. Rhett here does a few other ones that I'm sure he'll speak on. But yeah, I mean, you already did my intro for me, so.
Related to the fact you said you're, sorry. Use your own demo.
Forgot that we had one.
So, Jeff, whenever you're talking about the fact that you guys are fitting in a genre, sometimes when I've had conversations with you, you feel like that doesn't allow you to be qualified to speak to publishing. But the reality is, how many people in here are like, you're genre specific? Anything, it doesn't have to be space sci-fi for Jeff's knowledge to actually benefit you. So, from that perspective, you had mentioned something to me years ago about how you had been spending a lot of money related to your advertising costs, and then you took it back. Can you just give a little bit of a synopsis of that real quick before we move to Rhett? Related to when you were cutting your spend was so high and you were making no money practically.
Oh, yeah, we went through a phase of growth where I was under the impression that more money spent, more money earned, and that's really not the case anymore with ads. I'm sure most people in here who have dealt with advertising, whether it's Facebook or AMS or some other third-party platform, has found it to be very difficult to get a solid ROI, especially on ebooks that are like 99 cents, $3.99, $5.99. And there are ways to just let Amazon work for you, and once you can get into understanding what the algorithm is and how that platform works, and that it, how the search engine is, writing to market, all of those various facets of publishing, advertising becomes far less important depending on the series and how viable it is. But yeah, once we figured that out, I think my advertising spend is 3% of our income now, so it was much more than that.
You can admit it.
There was a point where we were spending upwards of $20,000 a month, so it's dropped significantly now. I think it's about $3,000 or $4,000. So, yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Rhett Bruno, so I co-run 20Books. We do basically only science fiction and fantasy, some exceptions here and there, but that's our main focus. We're more of a traditional style, and it's kind of only traditional style deals rather than co-write deals. We are a small press, but we put out a lot of books. We just kept a very small independent team. But yeah, we focus mostly on military, sci-fi, space opera. We do a lot of post-apocalyptic and fantasy. We do epic fantasy, lit RPG. Those are kind of our main genres. But again, we go beyond those here and there, and kind of manage expectations because some genres are harder to sell than others. But yeah, we take a very traditional approach to still being independent and taking advantage of all the things that being independent allows, like higher royalties, using Kindle Unlimited, things like that.
So, Rhett, in the last conversation that we had just about an hour ago, you mentioned that Athon puts out about 200 books a year. He talks about it being a small press, and then I said, hey, Rhett, a mid-tier publisher usually does about 80 in the traditional sense. You need to step up a little bit. But when you put out 200 books a year, what do you think is the most problematic issues that you had getting over that original hump?
Just scale, honestly, finding enough editors, cover artists, and people that can do the work that we want. So we have one marketing person. I handle our marketing. My partner, Steve, who's over there, does kind of all our graphic stuff. So we're like a two-man operation that sort of manages down below that to be able to keep on top of marketing and production. But again, we do a lot of series, right? So, that 200 books is sometimes it's a series that has 6 books in it that are already done. So that helps us get things out faster. But yeah, we're small in that we are still just independent. It's just us. We don't have investors or anything like that. But yeah, I know by the definitions we've probably at this point are beyond that small press limit. But yeah, it's really just scale. That's an issue, finding the right people. And also finding the limit. Like we always say, we're kind of at the limit of how much we could publish in the genres we publish. Otherwise, we're just going to be competing against ourselves, and that doesn't help the authors. So that's sort of been the learning curve.
Okay, I appreciate that. Jeff, at one point you were trying to expand beyond a book a week, and then you decided to choose and come back. How come did you make that choice of limiting how many books that you guys put out?
And it's the same thing that he was just talking about. You don't want to oversaturate your audience, and you don't want to have your authors competing with one another. So, you know, we strictly are in one genre. If we weren't, then, like, let's say we were doing fantasy too, or romance, or whatever, then it would make more sense to publish more than a book a week. But I found that that's sort of the max output that my audience can sustainably, you know, keep up with. I mean, you have your whale readers, which, you know, was the term you introduced to me 5 years ago, but those people read a book a day. And while we want to believe that that is the standard, it's more the anomaly in the business. But a lot of people can read a book a week. I'd say that's a pretty good ballpark number to stick with in terms of, like, you know, something like sci-fi. Romance readers read much faster on average, so it just depends on your genre. And the longer you're in it, the more, you know, familiar you'll become with your audience and what they can keep up with.
All right, so Robin, after your first year of working with LMBPN, your CEO came to you and said, "Hey, I'd like to start a new publishing part of this company." And I said, "For your first year, would you put out 100 books?" Would you speak to that?
Yes, he did. And I said, okay. Didn't I say, okay, I think we can do that, based on what I already knew about what LMBPN could do as far as output. It's really a well-oiled machine. It is incredible what Mike has kind of created. We're doing about 350. It's about 350 books a year. So we are publishing just fiction, series fiction. And, you know, he's well known with science fiction, with urban fantasy especially. But one of the things I started thinking about, what you just mentioned, you know, I thought we could broaden out our list and also do thrillers, do romance. So we've started a thriller imprint. We've started now just recently a romance imprint that we're excited about. So that does give us the ability to kind of broaden out the list. And you know, since I've been at LMBPN and kind of understood this kind of, because I was more of a traditional publisher before, where you work with an author that is creating one book a year if you're lucky. You know, the authors at LMBPN are generally, you know, creating you know, a book every 6 weeks, 8 weeks sort of thing. So that kind of rapid turn kind of publishing is what we're looking for, and the authors that can turn out that kind of quality work, you know, pretty quickly is what we're also looking for. So he had developed, like, the reputation. I just am there and people show up. They want to work with us. They know, you know, LMBPN does quality work and can expand, you know, almost any author's readership is what every author's looking for. And so it hasn't been as daunting as it first sounded that first week. You know, now that I understand, and we have Judith that does an incredible job on the international side, you know, it's more about having more people than we can publish now. So it's a good problem.
All right, so let me give you a little bit of the details on the publishing side of things that you need to look out for. As you start building it, you're going to have the actual manufacturing of the book process itself, which has been mentioned through countless number of things that are here, but you're going to have to acquire individuals that can work and work at the speed you need them to work, and don't accept what generally is understood. When I first came into indie authoring back in 2015, it was well understood that you had to go a minimum of 6 weeks to get your book edited. Minimum. Most likely that was first pass, so 9 weeks to 12 weeks. And I said, this is bullshit, I'm doing it in a week. And at the time, I didn't have an editing team. So I would actually have JIT people doing a Google Doc as I put stuff in there, and then by the Monday that I finished, we had it finished editing and out on Friday. As we went bigger than that and it became something more than just a single person, we're at 28 days. That includes 5 days that it's inside Amazon. So we're talking 23 days from when a person delivers a book that we can have it out, edited. In the history of LMBPN, we have about 1,700 books right now. We only have about 200 books that actually Amazon's ever tagged us that we need to fix something in. It's not as good as I'd like it to be, but it's absolutely better than the norm. So from that perspective, you look at your editing team. How can you get them? Everybody up here, speaking to both sides, they have phenomenal editing teams. Many times you're going to find editors that might become authors because they understand and learn what you're putting through there. So be aware of that. Really? Apparently they don't want this super secret information to get out. Yeah.
Fire alarm, right? Is that a fire alarm?
Yeah, that's a fire alarm.
Oh, it did?
Here we go. I'm going to say if someone's smoking in the bathroom. All right, well.
Have your attention, please. The source of the alarm signal that you have heard is being investigated. You will be notified when the source of the alarm is identified. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is going to make it really difficult to talk. And the audio guy is running up here.
Attention, please. The source of the alarm signal that you have heard is being investigated.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, they say continue, so, it's worth it. For those of you who are willing to continue on, so you're editing your art. Get a good art team. Because I've told authors before, if you piss off my artist, I'll drop you before I drop the artist. I just want them to understand, because sometimes authors have this consideration that they need to have every single thing that's in their book on the front cover, which is not a good way to sell. And I'm actually going to ask these guys the next thing. When you get authors and you have to deal with them for the first time related to the art and the cover art, what are the biggest challenges and how do you overcome them? So,
Yeah. Whew. Wanting too much on the cover. I mean, at a certain point, it's a little thumbnail, and if it's too busy and too muddied, it just doesn't work. And
how much do you think a bad cover hurts the sales?
a lot. I mean, it's the first thing that.
Answer the question, or state the question.
How much do I think a bad cover hurts sales? We always say it's like the first thing anyone sees. Yeah, so it's really, really important. It has to be on genre. It has to look good. And again, being on genre matters. You should research what's selling in that genre. But yeah, as far as dealing with authors, I mean, we usually ask when people are giving us a cover brief for more than one, because odds are is like 2 out of 3 are just going to be really specific, muddied ideas that the author gets, but are going to be hard for any artist to translate or any reader to get. And sometimes we'll even come back and say, how about we just show your main character instead, because that's just going to come off better. Maybe save one of these cool ideas for a sequel or something. But yeah, we tend to try to get people towards simple and try to get them to worry less about the exact specifics of matching their story. Like in the end, the cover is going to sell the story. If it doesn't match your character exactly, I mean, not every artist is going to do that. Not every artist can go back and forth 30 times to get a belt correct, There are certain tiny minutia levels of detail that just aren't going to matter on a cover. And some authors kind of agree and embrace that. Some it's tougher, so you really do have to know the authors and kind of what they can handle.
Yeah, there are 3 elements. You have to think of Amazon as a search engine primarily, and an online retail site secondarily. But there are 3 elements that sell a book 1 in particular. A good book 1 will sell book 2, but these 3 elements are key for book 1, and that is the cover by far is number 1. And then there's a pretty sizable gap. And then number 2 would be the blurb or the pitch. And number 3 would be the star rating. And not even, it didn't really matter between a 4.3 and a 4.5 because it appears as a 4.5 star rating when you look at the stars. And those are the things that people see when they're scrolling. So cover is very important. And when we deal with authors, a lot of times, they want to give a lot of it, sometimes they want to give a lot of input into the design. And for us in particular, we try to limit that as much as possible because we have an art director and and then he's the one that sort of sketches everything out and goes, to the various artists we use, and it really comes down to his composition and his experience, and then we use early details from the author about the story and the theme and the characters for that. So if you give too much leeway to an author and you ask them for too much input, then you're going to be going back and forth forever. And someone who's very good, like, your team is full of specialists. Your editor is an editing specialist. Your cover person, your art director, whatever, is a specialist in art. And then your writer is a specialist in writing. And just because you're a good writer does not make you good at art, and vice versa. Your editor may not be a great writer, and your artist may not be a good editor. So keep everyone in their own lanes, and occasionally they can cross over, they can give feedback, and that is important, but it's much more important to draw those parameters and make people aware up front when they come on that we are going to be controlling this, this, and this, and we're going to ask you for the occasional bit of feedback, but please stick to the plan, because this is the formula, this is the recipe, this is what works, and if you're not comfortable with that, it's okay. I can refer you somewhere else. And as long as people are okay with those parameters, then you can move forward.
Yeah, and I just agree with all of that. The thing to remember when you move from being, and how many here are self-published, you're publishing your own work, and how many would like to work with a publisher? So when you do make that leap, and it is a leap, when you're working with a publisher, you have to understand the publisher is investing in you as an author. They do have your best interest at heart. They definitely, and it's a business, right? So they're going to make decisions that they know are going to work in the marketplace. And I say this to Michael, and I can say it to you. When I'm talking to an author and working with an author, the number one thing for me is that you're going to not be a pain in my ass, right? So you're going to be receptive to our suggestions and understand that it's a collaboration, and that we're all in this together, and going to make you a better author, and you're going to make us a better publisher. Like, it all goes both together. So just realize that this is a collaboration, and it's going to benefit everybody at the end of the day.
So related to the fact that we're talking about indie publishing and trying to move these things forward, I want to discuss a little bit with everyone up here, translations versus audio. LMBPN has a translation company, or a foreign language company. LMBPN International, it does 7 figures a year. Germany, 6 different languages. We have a train overhead. So related to that, though, we also have a lot of audio stuff. We've done over 225 to 250 audiobooks ourselves. I used to refer to it very affectionately as my tax avoidance strategy. So we've decided early on, we're pushing out all the licensing we could to other partners, whether that be Podium or, Name, Tantor, Recorded Books, Graphic Audio, all of them. We pushed that out and allowed them to do it. But I'm going to ask you guys up here, where would you do, your translations? Are you doing any translations? What are your plans? Also, and if so, do you have any hints on that? We'd love to hear them. But also on the audio side, do you push it all out through partners, or do any of it internally?
Okay. What do you want me to start with, audio or translations?
Yes.
Okay. We are doing a few translations right now, but it is not our primary focus. Currently using a partner for 4 series, and depending on how that goes, we might do more. But right now, to the next point, audio is really where we're shifting all of our attention in-house. We do have audio partners, so Audible Studios, Podium Publishing, or Podium Audio, and they're great partners. If you're starting out, I strongly recommend seeking out a third party to help you publish, because it is a very expensive endeavor, whether it's doing foreign or audio. It's very expensive. But as you grow, you can make that judgment call whether you want to bring that stuff in-house or not. Like I said, we use both, as you do. So, anything else on that? Okay.
Yeah, so translations, like Jeff, we have some partners we do. Focus mostly on German right now. That's just where the genres we do tend to sell best. So we have like 4 partners that we're doing a bunch. We probably have like 20 or so titles in German already, and probably double that coming next year. So it's not a huge thing for us, but we have some partners that are pushing it out. Audio, on the other hand, unlike most publishers from the start, as authors who made more money in audio than anywhere else, we view audio as basically 1A, 1B with Kindle. It's just as important to us. So we basically, our goal is to get the best deal for that book possibly. So we work with every audio publisher, and we also do it in-house. Even if it's with an audio publisher, we market and do it as if it was in-house. We treat it like front list, and right now it's about half-half. We do half of our audio in-house, half with partners. Podium, Tantor, Recorder Books, Blackstone, Audible Studios. Sometimes they're not buying as much right now, but we basically work with all of them, mostly because audio is a lot of work, and for us to do all of them in-house, it would just take a huge team of people, and we can get more done and more efficiently and make more for authors if we are sort of splitting it up to different parties and marketing it all as if it's our own.
I'm going to let Martha start, or Martha. I'm going to let Robin start with this one. But when it comes to trying to acquire new authors, what do you guys do? Do you go out and seek new authors and reach out to them, or do you have them come to you, or is it the same?
Yeah, so it's both for me, and to follow up on that last question, part of what we offer, I think, is what, some of the largest publishers in the world can do, where, we can work with an author, help them expand, their platform, their readership, and also offer, all sorts of licensing that they probably can't get with a smaller publisher. So that's a huge benefit in just trying to acquire an author, and especially one that's been really successfully self-published. I know there's a rumor out there, I used to hear it all the time when I was at Ingram Spark, that it was a negative if you had self-published, that you wouldn't be able to work with a traditional publisher. And I will tell you that that's absolutely not true if you've done a good job self-publishing. If you understand the industry, if you've been successful in marketing and producing a quality book, there's definitely publishers that will be interested in you and acquiring you to become part of their stable.
So in terms of acquiring authors, we don't take submissions at all. It's more about coming up with a concept and seeking out the best person for that job. If I'm doing a book about Space Marines, then I go out and I find somebody with the experience, like Jonathan Brazee, who is a former Marine colonel, former combat Marine colonel, who can bring that sort of expertise to the table and lend that authenticity to it. There are exceptions where I network and I discover new people and they introduce themselves and we get to know each other, and then when the right project comes up, then we start talking about it. But for the most part, it's a much more curated approach to publishing. But that's because we're not, the same kind of publisher. But generally, I did look at that at one point, and I started looking at submissions and found that it was just too difficult to match the same voice, because it's largely co-writing, the same voice, and you hit the same audience. But if you're not trying to do that, then that's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, we do both. I think any publisher probably should be doing both, because submissions come in. We never turn our submissions off for a reason because we don't want to miss anything. But, beyond looking at the content itself, 75% of the submissions are just like wrong genre or wrong stuff. So we pick up tons of people through that way. Through Debut, we pick up a lot of people through networking, referrals. Very rarely, like it's not as often where it's someone we want that will reach out to them, but it happens. That we connected with Jonathan Mayberry that way. So it can happen, but typically it's referrals, it's submissions. We kind of just don't close our ears to anything, and we'll talk with the author and see how we like each other.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask any questions, please step up to the mic that's over there. And we have our first. I have to see if she goes back or forward. Okay, forward. Go ahead.
I'm going to let somebody else go first. Sorry. If there's like a drug being handed out at this conference, and this is not my genre, but it has to be lit RPG. I'd really not heard a lot about it. My siblings, my 3 younger siblings, they live in lit RPG. But the energy from the panels and the lit RPG authors that you met at this conference, the energy is so high, and these people are having so much fun. And I'd love to hear from each of you, is this on your radar? I know, Rhett, you're in the space. I'd love to hear, the market side, the business side. What are the metrics? What is this demographic? All of it.
So certainly one of the biggest lit RPG authors out there is Shirtaloon, who is published by 20Books on the ebook side. So would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, the way Amazon works has always been things and phases and genres get popular. Lit RPG has gotten really popular. And, there are other popular genres, but there's a lot of authors here. So a lot of the energy is just, there is a big contingent of big name lit RPG authors here. But yeah, so we do a lot in that genre. We're one of the biggest publishers in that genre. As far as metrics, I don't think I could give you that. But I could say the demographic for readers that we've found tends to skew towards older. Men over 40, guys who grew up playing RPGs and things like that. Rather than kids. Kids have the games already. So that's just a little bit about the demographics we found. It is kind of male-dominated still. But yeah, it's a great genre. There's a lot of great authors here for it. And that's, I can't share sales data, obviously, but I think, we could all look at Amazon and see the different genres that are selling. On sci-fi, you have military sci-fi, which kind of dominates that space. So sort of every main genre has a few of those subgenres that are going to dominate what's currently selling on Amazon. Lit RPG has kind of taken that role in epic fantasy, like military has in science fiction. So there are always subgenres like that out there. Seeking it out and writing for it doesn't always work, because that kind of can flood the market, but it's just about market research to find out what is selling.
So I will add to that, because I'm actually having conversations with some young women about lit RPG right now, and I'm really kind of excited about exactly for what you're saying. It's kind of a hot market right now. So it's not just a boys game.
I'm going to go to the next question.
I have a question for Michael and publishers who publish so many books. Like, if you got to like 1,000 books, or 200 books a year, how many writers are you working with that year? Are they 200 writers, or generally
No,
speaking?
actually, so let me break it down. Typically, whenever we're working with authors, we're looking for people who can do 10 to 20,000 words a week.
Okay.
So you can just backtrack from the numbers. Depending on your genre, if your genre is 60,000 words, well then for 20,000 words, that's a book every 3 weeks. Of course, it has to go through all the editing. But if it's more space opera or even bigger than that, epic fantasy, that might be a book every 3 months. I have known individuals that have done up to 300,000 words a month, but that's an incredibly rare situation. But for the authors who can continuously pump the books out, we've found out that 12,500 to 20,000 on the high side is a typical. So I hope that it gives you a better metric to be able to work on.
What I'm trying to is, how many writers do you work regularly, every month?
15 to 20,
Yeah,
Okay,
the same.
okay. And you
Probably
ma-
20 for me, too.
20 for you.
And you're the one who's managing like the 15 people per se?
She has,
Right.
so Martha has quite a few of the people, but I have the collaborative side. I probably personally am on 11 project lines at any one time.
Okay, thank you.
Guys?
Yeah. Well, because I co-write, it's more limited. So it's about 6 authors at any given time, maybe 7. Just to go back to the Lit RPG thing real quick, I don't write that, but I have written it in the past. And something that Rhett touched on, writing to market, writing to genre specifically can be very difficult. What I would say to anyone that's looking at Lit RPG or anything really is be very cautious about going after a genre you do not understand, because the readers understand it, intimately, and they will know if you're just chasing dollar signs, and that book will get 1 star to death. Make sure that whatever writer you're putting on it or looking at, that you understand the genre intimately, and so do they. Someone who actually reads it and knows what the tropes are and knows what readers want out of it, and before you dive into it head first.
Yeah, I
200.
mean, as far as authors, I think right now we have like 180 authors. So our deals tend to all be pretty custom. So we have some authors that write that fast. We have some authors that do a book a year. So that's not really a requirement for us. So basically, we're always working with a lot of authors at the same time. Now, of those 180, probably 60 their books have already come out, and it's less day-to-day dealings. As they're in our groups asking questions, sales, and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's when you get to that size, it's a lot of daily messages, emails. Sometimes it can be hard to get stuff done. So if this is what you're looking to do, I mean, I was a writer. I still write, but I don't write anywhere near as fast as I used to, because any given day I could be dealing with authors reaching out about stuff, us having to try to fix stuff. And some authors don't have any questions, some have 1,000, and you can't expect them all to be the same. So you just have to figure all that stuff out with more and more people coming in.
Yeah, look into virtual assistants. Look into ways to streamline what's going on so that those questions that come to you, that you can route to somebody else. That's something certainly I did early in my career, is that I started making sure there were other people asking or answering the questions I didn't need to answer, to allow me the time to be creative to actually run 11 lines at one time.
This is kind of a boring question, but when you're talking about where you're at, the back end, the finding good attorneys or good lawyers, good accountants that understand the business, where can you get those resources, or is there a way to tap in? Because being a CPA, if you're not focused on in the entertainment business, you're not going to be able to set up what's needed, because you're a manufacturing CPA. So
Referrals.
yeah. Oh, really?
Ask around, especially at this conference.
I sleep with my lawyer.
Yeah.
And
Everyone we
I
have.
actually did marry a JD. But actually, Judith, how would, sorry for putting you on the spot, but how would you answer that question yourself? Because you've had to do it. The same thing. You would ask for referrals.
Word of mouth, definitely, and referrals, because it's really important. The individuals that you hire will become intimately familiar with everything you do, and so you have to have trust in them, and besides them being competent. But for example, our CPA came through us through a referral, and we vetted them twice, met with them in person once, signed an NDA. CPAs are not used to that, but they did, and so we worked with them for many years. So yeah, referrals.
You know, a few years ago, we had to go to, we got into a tiff with the guild. And that tiff, they were really trying to push back on us. And so we had to go after a particular lawyer that was about particular law. So it was referrals from our lawyer to another lawyer to a third lawyer. And after one phone call, that other group decided not to talk to us again. So referrals really, really, really are very beneficial. So it looks like we have about 6 minutes left. Yes. Oh, due to the alarm, we get 10 extra minutes. Very good. So really, I'd like to understand, I mean, this is here about publishing. You have $20-30 million worth of publishing expertise up here. If you have anything, even starting small, please, by all means, ask the questions, or you can ask, later. Yes?
Okay, I understand this is kind of what the whole conference is about, but my first book I'm writing right now, I've just set today, okay, in 3 months I'm going to have it done. Then what? Who do I call? Do I call you? Do I,
Do you wish to publish yourself, or do you wish to be an indie publisher where you publish yourself, or do you want someone like a publisher to publish you? Or do you know?
I'm thinking indie, but so do I then go to Amazon and talk to them, or like I said, what is the next step after I finished writing? Okay.
Right, okay. Start now. Right, there are a few things. If you actually look up that question on the FAQ, the frequently asked questions part of 20 books, you're going to get a lot of information. But in short, you need to get your email set up now. You need to get some sort of simple website set up. And that needs to get started now, because whenever you put that book out, you need to make sure that you start capturing emails from day one. So that's a few of the things. Who's going to be your editor? How long is it going to take them to edit? And so from the business side of things, you're going to start understanding release cycles. You're only going to be on the short list, and all of this information's in the FAQ for asking that explicit question. If you can't find it for some reason, just ask the question, and you're going to get a lot of answers. Some of them appropriate for you, some of them appropriate for a different genre. And then you need to ask yourself, am I going to go wide, or am I going to be exclusive? If you're exclusive with Amazon, you're not going to have to learn how to do all the other places. And you only have to be exclusive 3 months before you can kick out and go wide. But once you push the button, you're going to have the opportunity to actually put in practice all the things that you're learning.
Is that FAQ on Facebook?
It's on the Facebook group, the 20 Books to 50K Facebook group.
Right, yeah. Well, that's why I haven't seen it, because Facebook, every time I try to log in, they say I've logged in too many times, and
uh-oh.
It's.
If anyone have any solution for that, find the gentleman with the hat. Oh, right here.
I've done that several times. They keep. Anyway, that's
yeah,
no.
Issue, that's fine.
But I'll somehow get onto Facebook and do that. So
okay.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, you talked about collaborators and co-authors. So how does that work? And you talked about you had several lines of production. I'm just interested to hear a little bit more about that, some of the details of that.
Okay. I'll start with Jeff, and then I'll finish.
Okay.
When you ask how it works, what do you mean?
So you talked about, do you guys come up with, you said something about a concept. I think it might have been Rhett. You come up with a concept. Are you coming up with the ideas and then asking writers to write that, or how does that happen?
Well, everybody has their own way of doing it. A lot of people, a lot of authors collaborate. It's just that they don't turn it into a business, like, a full-on mini publisher. What I would suggest, if that's the route you're looking at, pick a genre, stay in that lane, and Michael's the exception, because you collaborate in all kinds of genres. But I would recommend that you start small and focus on one. And if you find that you have more ideas than time to write them, then that's what happened with me. That's how I got started with collaborating. Then it's a great alternative to just spending your days doing nothing but writing 12, 15 hours a day, which is where I was at. So it frees up a lot more time to focus on building the business. But if you're not sure if about the ideas, and really writing to market is the key takeaway with that. Like, if you have ideas that you think will sell, not just from a creative standpoint, but also from like what the market wants and what you think will take off and that sort of thing, and you're just sitting on these ideas, then collaborating is a great alternative to straightforward publishing.
So I'll go a little bit of my background just to answer that. So I wrote the first Arthurian Gambit books, wrote them all myself. At some point, it became that the fans were asking about things I couldn't write about. Post-apocalyptic. You have to really know that genre. So I started reaching out and did a collaboration with Craig Martelle. That's when he and I hooked up. And so he's actually the one that wrote it. So he and I talked about it, and we went through what the discussion points were, but he's the person who wrote those books. And you'll notice his name is first with that. Eventually, at some point, I realized I'm getting tired of writing 80,000 words every few weeks. And so I'm like, I don't even think I'm the best writer, but I really could create a good story. So I kind of elevated myself to a beats writer. I would write the beats, and then I hired somebody to finish the story out. So I'm now hiring ghostwriter. In fact, the lady who supplied that first ghostwriter is only about 15 feet from me, or 12. So from that standpoint, that's how I got into having a beats writer. And if you see any book that says created by Michael Anderle, just know I didn't write that whole book. And then the next step up after that is a concept person. So at that point, you're creating concepts again. But I actually have people that I'm like, okay, here's the concepts. This is what I want to have happen. I need the beats. Go through the beats, and then the rest of it. And over years, you build a complete cadre of how to do this. And so from that perspective, right, we have 11 product lines, but then you get collaborators, right? I already talked about a collaborator, but then you're teaching the collaborator how to also do it with you with writers. And so you start building whole infrastructure, and then you start doing a shit ton of books.
Good.
So my question kind of harkens back to how you got started. Do you have a particular business creed or business the mantra that keeps you going as far as running the company?
Yeah.
So my story is I have desperately tried to get out of publishing for the last 50 years, and I keep getting dragged back into it. So for some reason, this is my karma, I think. I think what writers do is something that elevates all of humanity, seriously. And I think it's noble work, and I'm really proud to be part of it, part of the cog that kind of disseminates a writer's work and thoughts. And really, when I think about it, there's nothing better that I could be doing, right? I could spend more time with my grandchildren and playing pickleball, but really, it's the best thing. When Michael called me after I said I'm done, he said, I don't think you're quite done yet, And now that I'm back into doing this indie publishing work, I'm really more motivated and excited than ever because, before I was working with two large vendors, Amazon and Ingram, the two largest in the world in terms of book distribution and creation. Now I'm working really directly with authors and helping them really, create their writing careers, their author careers, and being part of that whole experience. It's a lot more satisfying to me.
So I came from writing. I came up in the traditional publishing circuit, so kind of those connections and my successes were what allowed us to build Athon from the start. My co-author, I write with Steve, and we came up starting everything together. And kind of what we have always focused on, our creed from the start was being author first. Not just giving authors everything they want right, but in creating terms that were extremely fair to them. And one goal from the start was always we want every author to make more than we do on every book as far as the percentages. And 4 or 5 years in, we've been able to keep that going while making a lot of authors either have their dream come true or honestly making some very rich. And in the end, that's why they're coming to us, to help them sell their books. Otherwise, they could if they just want it out in the world, they could self-publish it. And so that is really what has helped us, is we're really helping authors make a living and go full-time at this.
I just wanted to be a writer since I was 18, so getting into this just felt like a natural, career path, and the publishing angle of it, publishing other people, collaborating, just sort of happened. So it wasn't really something I pursued intentionally from the start. I just wanted to tell good stories and entertain people, and the collaborating allowed me, more opportunities to do that. And the reason I don't take more than a few people at a time is because we want those people to be as successful as possible, and we want to put all of our attention onto that. Like I was saying, we're only in one genre, so optimally that's how I view it to be the best way possible. But why don't you tell your backstory?
My backstory?
Yeah.
I've already told my backstory a bunch of times. Hell. Related to my backstory, do you want to know more about the business side or just the
Your more like your creed.
my creed?
Yeah. And is it important to have one?
Yes. Well, my creed, I wanted fans to want to reread my stories and make money. And I don't think enough people understood when I said make money, I actually meant make a really good profit. So everything that's kind of built around what's going on is, if you're going to make good stories, they'll want to reread them. So that, at the same time, everyone says you have to be good stories. Well, if they reread them, kind of by definition, they're good stories. They create a situation where they like the characters. They're really engaged with it. It's somebody who's a friend. That's what I meant by that. And from the make money part of it is because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I've been trying to make businesses my whole damn life. And I have a PhD in failure for all intents and purposes until this happened. And then so, I kept going at it. What else can I do? There's definitely been some false starts. The first time that I lost $26,000 on art, hell of a learning experience. $20,000 on romance, a great experience to have everyone laugh at me and my company. Continues to this day. So there's a lot of downsides necessarily, but from the opportunity to be able to go travel worldwide, work from anywhere that has a decent internet connection, to be able to, retire my wife and then hire my wife was phenomenal. There's things that all of that little bitty creed, right? Great stories that makes money. And it flows through everything. And the second part, or the tertiary, is the personality of the person. We're kind of fun. We're just kind of a fun-loving group. So that personality part goes through the whole company, and everyone, wishes to be hopefully a part of it. So thank you.
Speaking real quick off of what Rhett was saying about taking care of your authors and what you touched on there, if you do get into publishing or collaborating, you're going to find that you feel like you have this almost a personal relationship with these people and their families. This is a small community. You'll see them at conferences. You'll talk to them on the phone. You'll spend a lot of time getting to know them. And so you will feel somewhat obligated to take care of them. Some of these people quit their jobs and their careers, and they come and they go full time. I've had long conversations with people about, you're making $30,000 a year or $24,000 a year. I think we can do better. Take the jump, take the leap, give me the chance to get you to where you want to be. And for some of these people, it is a huge leap of faith because they have kids and spouses that they support. And just be aware, if you get into this, that these people are putting a lot of faith in your ability to sell their books.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just kind of curious because I've seen some indie authors who will create their own publishing companies that are but they only publish themselves. And I was just wondering from a business perspective if that's any different than just publishing under your name.
No.
Okay.
I mean, if you have a LLC and you want to say, my LLC is Variant Publications, it's also the name of my business. So for tax purposes, it's just your business, but you could call that anything. You could call it your name publishing or whatever. I know people that do that all the time, and a lot of times, I've heard people say, I do it because I want to appear more professional. I want to appear, like I'm published by an entity that's not me. It's really up to you. It doesn't matter.
It's definitely smarter if you're going to self-publish to not publish under your name. It just works better in the marketplace. Exactly what Jeff was saying. It makes you appear more professional. And almost everybody starts. Michael started publishing himself, right? But not under his own name. So I just think it's a much better way to go and would really recommend it. At least establish an imprint. Even if business-wise you're still, your business is still under your own name, at least you're publishing under a different name so it looks like another publisher's doing your work.
And as the last question, do you mind coming over here? And then we'll answer your question real quick as we come up the stage, because they're telling me right here I have no time left. So we'll see you here. Thank you very much for joining us for this. Look forward to answering anything that's going on, and y'all have the rest of the afternoon. Thanks.